The Bond franchise seems ready-made for video games. It's got plenty of stunts, guns and stunning locations, and of course a brilliant main character. But the history of Bond games is not as rosy as we would expect.
Here's your brief, Goose. We need you to follow our lead and investigate the source of the threat.
A group of international terrorists targeting the ABC with an EMP. How original. The first game was made back in 1983 by the Parker brothers.
It was a side-scrolling shooter platformer based on 4 previous Bond films. In 1985, publisher Domark kickstarted their long relationship with the franchise with A View to a Kill. A year later, the first movie tie-in game emerged with The Living Daylights. Made by Aussie developers Melbourne House, it was a platform shooter which roughly followed the plot of the film, but suffered from some severe gameplay and difficulty issues.
Do proceed with the utmost caution, Goose. It'll be a national disaster if the Australian public are deprived of good game forever.
Duly noted, Em. More monk, less hitman.
Exactly.
The next movie tie-in game was License to Kill, released in 1989, and it received more critical praise than its predecessor.
Report to the lab. Dee will be waiting.
Yes, Mum.
And Goose, do try to come back alive.
For the next 6 years after License to Kill, production on the Bond films was halted due to legal battles fought by its production company Eon. But this didn't stop game producers. Domark continued with its range of Bond top-down shooters with the adaptation of The Spy Who Loved Me in 1990. Followed by James Bond 007 The Duel in 1993, which became the first game not to be based on an existing Bond film or book.
He seems a little hot-headed.
Ah, good morning, Goose.
Good morning, Dee. What have you got for me today? Then there was a long wait for the next Bond game, but when it arrived, it was a game changer.
There's not much to be said of Goldeneye N64, which hasn't already been said. But for a game which took its initial inspiration from Virtua Cop, it was to be a landmark in console first-person shooters. And it's still the game that everyone thinks of when you mention James Bond and video games in the same sentence.
Don't touch that! The icing's plutonium!
The game built the groundwork for many features we now take for granted in modern first-person shooters, and it provided an equally strong single and multiplayer experience.
The fact that the producers of Goldeneye actually invited Rare to the film sets meant that the game was one of the first few movie adaptations to really capture the feel of the film's locations.
Now pay attention, Goose. This vintage Game Boy is equipped with twin lasers. Simply press A and B together to arm and up on the control pad to fire. And down twice to disarm, or else it's...
Game over?
Oh, grow up, Goose. And bring it back in one piece this time.
Unfortunately, the brilliance that was Goldeneye didn't continue when EA took helm of the franchise. Both Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough shot wide of their targets. If you look for perfection...
You'll never be content. Are you my contact, mister?
The name's Goose. Just Goose. And you are?
Natalia. Natalia Hexatop.
Once EA started to make standalone Bond games, they really found their groove.
Both Agent Under Fire and its sequel, Nightfire, received positive reviews. They returned Bond to the first-person shooter, with original storylines, title songs, villains, and Bond girls.
Waiter, I'll have a martini, shaken, not stirred. And the lady will have a carte blanche.
You know my favorite drink, Mr. Goose.
Good evening, Mr. Goose.
Now's the time, my dear. Bring him to me.
Everything or Nothing took the standalone Bond game concept to new heights in 2004.
It felt like a true Bond adventure in game form and received deserved critical acclaim. The script was written by Bruce Fierstein, who also helped pen 3 actual Bond films.
Sorry, gentlemen, but I have a train to catch.
Even though EA had its relative successes, it also had its fair share of duds.
007 Racing was a shallow cash-in on the franchise, and GoldenEye Rogue Agent tried to align itself with the GoldenEye brand, but was nothing more than a retconned Bond mashup with old villains and a deficient storyline.
You can't run, Hexatop. I know who you work for.
No! You don't know what he's capable of. You don't know fear.
In 2005, EA went in a different direction, producing an adaptation of From Russia with Love. It was the first time a Bond game had revisited the old film canon since the late 80s, and it took us back to the retro days of Sean Connery's Bond, although he did sound a tad tired.
A dry martini. Shaken, not stout.
Goose?
Natalia, just tell me where he is. We can keep you safe.
All right. He's in the control room preparing the satellites. Hurry. Goose, you can't let him win.
Ah, Mr. Goose. We finally meet face to face. I'm Ernst Stavro Badgefeld. Guards, kill him.
In 2006, Activision bought the rights to the James Bond license, kicking off their campaign with Quantum of Solace.
The game updated Bond with a cover system and grappling moves.
Although a decent game, Quantum of Solace didn't exactly set the gaming world on fire.
But Activision would improve on their gameplay in the next installment, Bloodstone. Scripted again by Bruce Fierstein, it was another solid standalone, incorporating a catchy Bond theme from Joss Stone and takedown mechanics from the likes of games like Splinter Cell.
See you in the lobby. It's over, Bargefeld. Give up.
Your pithy secret agent status is no match for my wits. I've already armed the satellites.
In 2010, Nintendo released an updated version of the original GoldenEye for the Wii. Although the graphics felt refreshed, it failed to capture the magic of the original. Changing Bond to Daniel Craig, losing the likeness of Sean Bean as Alec Trevelyan, and major plot changes meant that the game was less of an update and more of a reimagining.
For England?
For England, Alec. Always for England.
In 90 seconds, Mr. Goose, the whole world will know how you failed to protect them.
Although James Bond has given inspiration to many video game characters and settings that we're familiar with today, it hasn't had much success in the form of games.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Goose, I expect you to die.
But with the film actors becoming more willing to partake in the games, perhaps it won't be long until we get the next fully fledged Bond game. After all, he is the world's greatest secret agent. Shocking. Positively shocking.
Goose, you're alive. But what happened to Mr. Batchfeld?
Well, darling, I think he blew a fuse.